There are some contraltos who actually, if you close your eyes, you do ask yourself, is that a man or a woman? I suppose one of the things about being a countertenor is that you do still encounter people who've never heard a countertenor. So you can sometimes be in concerts and you'll see kind of people sitting there and kind of suddenly they'll just go, or their heads will just go down and go, and you can see they're sort of shaking with laughter. And I suppose for a while I kind of thought this was a bit rude and a bit offensive, but actually I kind of now think, well, you know what? It sort of is funny, isn't it? I mean, a man singing in a high voice is, objectively speaking, actually funny. But I would say once you get used to it, you know, there are people who then really grow to love it. And lots of people say, oh, I remember the first time I heard a countertenor, for example. A countertenor is a singer who employs mainly the falsetto. And the falsetto is just using a small part of the vocal cords. So when I speak, obviously I use all of the vocal cords. And when I sing, I just use a small inner part, which are shorter. So the shorter part makes a higher sound, like this. Ah. It's using a smaller part of the vocal cords, but I wouldn't say that one should sing any differently to any other singer. You don't have to squeeze the vocal cords or any other part of yourself to get that high. Singing falsetto is something which all men can do, some better than the others, but obviously if you have something like the Bee Gees, Staying Alive, you can hear that you know, even pop singers do it quite a lot. So it's an ability that I'd say almost all men have, but some do it better than others. The impression one gets from Bach in Leipzig was that he seemed to be pretty grumpy with the standards of everyone, and seemed to always complain that no one was good enough. So I guess the danger would be that if he heard us singing his music, he would just complain and tell us we were all too rubbish. Well, so I suppose I'm very lucky in that the Netherlands Bach Society does frequently use countertenors. I suppose if you look back into the history of the Bach Society, it originated as quite a large amateur choir, and they used female contraltos in a kind of more of a modern classical mainstream way when they performed Bach. But I think in the last, say, 35 years, Jos van Poothoven, he changed the nature of the ensemble from a kind of large oratorio choir to much more of an early music ensemble, and he was a fan of countertenors and liked using the voice, so that tradition has remained. You could say that countertenors are stealing women's jobs, but I don't know. I think if you look back to Bach, women were not allowed to make a sound in church. which shouldn't be a surprise because women were hardly allowed to do anything at all in society. I think that's where generally the tradition of boys and falsetto singing comes from, was this actually kind of deeply sexist and oppressive society. So when you wanted those high voices, you used men. I reckon we can perform that.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, we should perform it.
But it's so unfair to say that the inner voices are so beautiful, because the tenor line is great, but your line is really, your line is boring.
I think I did it brilliantly.
You did it fantastic, but it's a boring line.
Right.
While his line is amazing.
As far as I know, one of Bach's actual soprano solo cantatas, Weichet nur betrübte Schatten, was actually written for a friend of his in Weimar who was a falsettist. So I think Bach knew about falsetto singing. When you talk about boys in Bach's day, I think it's also quite somewhat of a different thing to now, because you would have boys who were 17, 18, 19 and still singing the high parts, and whether they were actually boys with unbroken voices, which they probably sometimes were, or whether they were singing in a kind of falsetto, I would say both is actually possible. When my voice broke, I'd been singing in this cathedral choir for some time, and I suppose actually when it happened, I was kind of ready for it. I think I was ready to maybe just take a break. Also, being 14 and kind of a grumpy teenager, so I took a break from classical music and listened to Nirvana and people like that for a bit, and wanted to paint my bedroom black, but my mum didn't let me. Der Schluss ist nun gemacht, Welt gute Nacht, Welt. A year or two later, I realised I rather missed it, and so started to look back into it and started experimenting with countertenor, and realised actually this is really what I want to do. And then your voice breaks, you then have to kind of really sort of build it back up, and that's a process which for male voices can take 15 years. It's difficult to say, even if you're 26, that you're a finished singer. And I would say even someone like me getting on for 40, I wouldn't say I'm a finished singer or a finished person, so it's one keeps considering and developing and changing, but life's wonderful, isn't it?